Thank you, Acting Deputy President. I rise to speak in support of Senator Pocock's Improving Government Honesty and Trust Bill 2025. Yesterday, I moved that the government table a very simple list: the organisations that currently hold sponsored passes to access Parliament House, a measure that would cost the government nothing, but would give the public some insight into who has privileged access to the decision-makers in this building. That motion was blocked by both the Labor Party and the Liberal and National Coalition. It actually highlights, and it was a very small example of a bigger problem. In almost every area, this government has sought to reduce the ability of this Parliament and the Senate, by extension, the Australian people out there, to scrutinise its activities. Rates of compliance with Senate orders for the production of documents are now amongst the lowest since record-keeping began. We have to drag information out of departments that should, by right, belong to the people. The Freedom of Information system is already broken, and is that to anyone's surprise? Requests are delayed for months, bounced between agencies, or stonewalled entirely altogether. Now, instead of fixing it, the government proposes so-called reforms that would make things even worse. They want to introduce new fees for Australians who make FOI requests, but Australians already pay fees. They're called taxes. And they already pay the wages of the public servants who process these requests, so I don't understand what the government's trying to get there. Charging them twice isn't efficiency. It's about discouraging people to even make the request in the first place, and discouraging them from asking those real questions. We've also realised and seen that even answers to basic questions on notice in Senate estimates have become increasingly unhelpful. And as I mentioned earlier, order of production of documents are usually returned entirely redacted and blacked out page after page. So much for transparency. Months late and often reduced to a link to a department's website or a vague paragraph about government philosophy. Again, this isn't transparency. It's an obstruction that's dressed as process. And when it comes to accountability, Australians in 2022 were promised a National Anti-Corruption Commission that would restore the trust in government. But what we have is a body so restricted in its scope and so hamstrung by secrecy provisions that it cannot do the very thing it was created to do. A commission that can't compel transparency, that dismisses referrals without explanation, that shields the most powerful from scrutiny, is not a watchdog. It's window dressing. It gives the appearance of integrity while protecting those in power from real consequences. You know, this isn't what the Labor Party historically stood for. Labor has always claimed to be the party of integrity, the party of transparency, and the party that champions the rights of ordinary people against entrenched interests. From Curtin's wartime government that trusted Australians with the hard truth, to Gough Whitlam's reforms that expanded access to information and broadened rights of participation, Labor has claimed the mantle of honesty and openness. And yet, what do we see transpire in the previous Parliament and this in the 48th Parliament? The modern Labor Party platform commits to, and I quote, restoring trust in democratic institutions, ensuring integrity in government decision-making, and championing the rights of people over the influence of vested interests. They're not my words. That's the Labor Party's words. That's their own words. Yet when the moment comes to honour them, to stick by them, to implement them, when the Senate asks about transparency, about who holds passes to this building, or when the public asks to see documents behind government decisions, the shutters come down. And let's remember why this matters, because the people who sit in this chamber and who walk the halls in this building make decisions that affect every person on this continent. Decisions about housing, healthcare, the environment, and our nation's future. Decisions that young people in particular will live for decades to come. I speak with young Australians every week, whether it's in WA, whether it's here in Canberra, communities across the country. They're engaged, they're informed, and they're watching. But too often, they tell me that they feel locked out of politics. They don't believe the government is listening to them. They see lobbyists with passes to this building given more access than the communities they represent. They see secrecy where there should be openness and self-interest where there should be service. And that's the crisis we face. Not just a crisis of policy and mismanagement, but a crisis of trust. And when the Albanese Labor government was elected in 2022, we thought that the era of mistrust had gone, that they would bring hope to Australian politics, to do things differently. Because unless we fix it, unless we build that transparency back into the way government operates, we risk losing an entire generation's faith in our democratic system, and that's dangerous. This bill is an important opportunity. It gives us that opportunity to turn back from that path. And like Senator Pocock said, this is not a radical proposal. It's simple, it's sensible, and it's a basic attempt to repair the fabric of that trust between people and government. I say to my former colleagues in the Labor Party, you built your party on a promise to stand with the people against secrecy and entrenched power. Do not walk away from that legacy now. Do not abandon young Australians who are demanding integrity and honesty in politics. Because you shouldn't see transparency as a threat. It's a foundation of our democracy. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. And for the sake of young Australians who deserve a government they can believe in, for the sake of rebuilding trust in this parliament, and for the sake of Labor's own legacy of integrity, I commend this bill to the Senate.